Chari, Dean of the Lubar School of Business at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. I welcome you to a presentation of the Great Journeys series sponsored by the MNI Marshall and Isley Center for Business Ethics at the Lubar School of Business. This series features persons of eminence who embody values of business ethics, integrity, and social responsibility. Their stories are truly inspirational. And today we are delighted to have one such person, N.R. Narayana Murthy, with a loan of $250 taken from his wife and along with 6 other co-founders. Mr. Murthy founded Infosys in 1981. And despite the tight regulations in India at that time of Infosys founding, the company grew at a rapid pace to reach a market capitalization of around $78 billion today and approximately 250,000 employees worldwide. Mr. Murthy has received numerous recognitions, including being named as the top 12 entrepreneurs of our times by Fortune magazine and the E&Y World Entrepreneur Award. So before I begin, some housekeeping announcements. Towards the end, we will allocate roughly 10 to 12 minutes for audience questions. If you have any questions for Mr. Murthy, please use the Q&A feature. This event is being recorded, and the link to the recording will be available at the Lubar School website. Mr. Murthy, so nice to see you. While you could not be with us in person, I'm glad that you could join us virtually. I believe that Infosys has some ties to Wisconsin, and you have visited Wisconsin. So what was it like?
Well, let me spend a couple of sentences on that. We designed a very large MIS for Jockey International at Kenosha, Wisconsin in the year 85, 86. And I had to lead that project because the then leader had to come to India because his father was not well. So I spent about 3 months in Kenosha. People were very nice, very kind, very courteous. And it was a great fun working with people in Kenosha. We used to go to Milwaukee once in a while. So I'm very, very grateful to the region for this kindness.
Thank you, and for those kind words for our folks here. So let me start with your earlier years, when I think it's safe to say that you didn't envision yourself as being a corporate leader in a capitalist society. In fact, you have a fascinating story about what changed your younger self's belief system, from being more leftist leanings to now being a self-described compassionate capitalist. Would you share the story with us? And also what do you mean by being a compassionate capitalist?
Sure. Thanks, Kaushal. This is a long story and will take a few minutes. I hope it's okay. My passion to become an entrepreneur developed only after I went to France to work in a real-time software company in Paris, and after my hitchhiking trip across Europe to my country, India. This passion came from 3 lessons that I learned during my stay in Paris in the early 1970s. And the 3 lessons are: 1, the only way a country like India can solve the problem of poverty is by creating jobs with good income. Number 2, this job creation can be done only by entrepreneurs in the private sector and not by the government. And number 3, the task of the government, the responsibility of the government is to create an incentivizing, hurdle-free environment that encourages these entrepreneurs to create more and more better and better paying jobs. I learned these three important lessons in early 1970, as I said, when I was working in Paris, and when I had lots of discussions on Saturdays and Sundays with experts and students on the ideologies of the left, the right, and the center at the left bank cafes and at Sorbonne in Paris. I was also very impressed with how the Western nations had embraced free market philosophy, had solved the problem of jobs and poverty, and had created so much of wealth and prosperity for the common man. I was impressed with facilities like infrastructure, level of cleanliness, honesty, lack of corruption, education, healthcare, housing, and nutrition. These ideas were, of course, strengthened by my visits to other Western European cities. After spending a few years in Paris, I decided to go back to my country. I decided to hitchhike from Paris to Mysore, India, and I took about a year to do it on a budget of $450 US. I had an unpleasant experience with the police at a place called Niš in what was then the communist Yugoslavia and now Serbia. Let me tell you that story. A kind driver dropped me at 9 p.m. on a Saturday night at the railway station of Niš, which is a border town between former Yugoslavia, now Serbia, and Bulgaria. The restaurant was closed. The bank was closed the next morning since it was a Sunday. I could not eat because I had no local money. I slept on the railway platform until 8:30 p.m. in the night on Sunday when Sofia Express pulled in. The only passengers in my compartment were a girl and a boy. I struck a conversation with them in French. Only the girl could understand. She talked about the travails of living in an iron curtain country until we were roughly interrupted by some policemen who I later gathered were summoned by the young man who thought we were criticizing the great communist government of Bulgaria. The girl was led away. My backpack and sleeping bag were confiscated. I was dragged along the platform into a small 8-foot by 8-foot room with a cold stone floor and a hole in a corner by way of toilet facilities. I was held in that bitterly cold room without food or water for over 72 hours. I had lost all hopes of ever seeing the outside world again when the door opened. I was again dragged out roughly, locked up in the guard's compartment on a departing freight train, and I was told that I would be released 20 hours later only upon reaching Istanbul. The guard's final words still ring in my ears. And he said, "You are from a friendly country called India, and that's why we are letting you go." The journey to Istanbul, Kaushal, was lonely, and I was starving. This long, lonely, cold journey forced me to deeply rethink my convictions about leftism. Early on that Thursday morning, after being hungry for more than 108 hours, I was purged of any lost vestiges of affinity for the left. I concluded that entrepreneurship resulting in large-scale job creation was the only viable mechanism for eradicating poverty in societies. Deep in my heart, Kaushal, I always thank the Bulgarian gods into a determined, compassionate capitalist. Uh, Inevitably, as can be seen, this sequence of events led to the eventual founding of Infosys in 1981. Now, let me talk a little bit about what I mean by compassionate capitalism. To me, compassionate capitalism is about capitalism in mind and socialism at heart. It is about combining the best of capitalism and socialism. It is about fair capitalism. It is about free market philosophy where the leaders of capitalism exercise self restraint and do not accumulate for themselves a disproportionate part of the fruits of the corporation. It is about treating employees with respect and dignity. It is about ensuring that the salary increases of the lowest level are first handled before you get to discuss the salary increases of the senior staff. It is about operating responsibly and sustainably in the society and not creating externalities like polluting air and water. Let me stop here.
Great, a very interesting and humane concept or vision you have. So moving forward, your ideals seem in large part based on the opportunities provided by entrepreneurship, and you founded Infosys at a time when there were two major shifts happening in the world, the beginning of the information technology revolution, and the second trend was globalization that provided you with the great entrepreneurial opportunity. Please tell us a little bit about that period in time and how Infosys developed into powerhouse as it is today. And also, please share some key milestones when you share the Infosys story.
Sure. Towards the end of 70s, three major technologies democratized access to commercial computing in the US. The first was the introduction of inexpensive super mini computers like VAX 11780 from the Digital Equipment Corporation and Data General MV8000 from Data General Corporation. These were comparable to IBM 43XX mainframe computers in power. Second, inexpensive software online transaction processing monitors based on relational databases on these super mini computers made transaction-oriented commercial applications viable and affordable. It also created an inexpensive competition to expensive OLTP monitors like CSCS on IBM mainframe. Third, this led to the acceptance of these technologies for running commercial applications by small and medium corporations in the US, as well as by the functional departments of large corporations in the US. So the demand exploded for the development of commercial applications on these inexpensive hardware and software platforms in the US. Now, let me come to the supply side now. India was producing a large number of competent and hardworking engineers who had very few job opportunities. Therefore, talent, which was crucial for developing commercial applications by Indian software companies for handling this exploding demand, was available. Now, this alone would not have been sufficient for the Indian companies to offer their experience and expertise in developing and maintaining leading edge systems to the US corporations. The sufficient condition came through a phenomenon called globalization. Globalization I define as the paradigm by which you source capital from where it is cheapest, you source talent from where it is best available, you produce where it is most cost effective, and you sell where the markets are without being constrained by national boundaries. The story of success of globalization is also the story of innovation by developing countries to overcome the barriers of constraints in serving global markets. Now, both the customers and the producers benefited enormously from globalization. The US has been a leader in embracing globalization on the demand side. China, India, and Far Eastern countries were the main beneficiaries of globalization on the supply side. However, it is very important to remember that globalization will only work on an enduring basis only if the countries that participate in the global bazaar do not create an unfair and enduring balance of trade in their favor. Now, coming to the various milestones, we went public in India in 1993. We went public on NASDAQ in 1999, March 11th, 1999. We became one of the NASDAQ 100 in 2003 or so. We reached $1 billion in revenue in 2004. Today, we are somewhere around $13 billion in revenue and about $2.5 billion in net income, or $2.8 billion in net income. As you pointed out, our market capitalization is about $78 billion. Let me stop there.
That's quite an achievement for Infosys and for you personally to see the company flourish from start. You know, it's an amazing journey for Infosys. So let's move on to leadership. So what would you say has defined you as a leader? And from your own experience, what are some of the key attributes of a good leader?
Let me say what I have learned from so many successful leaders. Your country is one that has produced lots of very successful leaders. I have learned from many of them. So let me sum it up. First is ability to craft a vision in which every stakeholder of the corporation sees benefit. Second, ability to inspire confidence and trust in colleagues to go through hard times, to make the required sacrifice through leadership by example in action. Third, adherence to values, that is customer focus, leadership by example, integrity and transparency, fairness in every transaction with every stakeholders, and excellence in everything one does. Fourth, ability to continually scan the horizon for risks, structural shifts, trends, take proactive risk mitigation decisions well in time, and identify and seek opportunities. Fifth, develop people skills with juniors, board members, media, bureaucrats, and politicians. Sixth, ability to communicate, exhort, and enthuse people orally and in writing. Seventh, courage to take tough, unpopular, and bold decisions. Eighth, strict adherence to meritocracy. Ninth, ability to connect the 50,000 feet bird's eye view of the world with the ground level worm's eye view of the world. That is the ability to connect strategy with execution. 10th, ability to deal with ambiguity and rapid change. 11th, speed in decision making. 12th, high speed and high quality in execution of the decisions taken. 13th, ability to courteously and agreeably communicate tough and unpleasant decisions to juniors, peers, and seniors. Then use of data, modeling, and simulation in scenario analysis and arriving at decisions. And a very important thing, emotional integrity and stability. That is the ability to sustain shock, collect oneself during a crisis, give confidence to youngsters, and drive the organization forward. And finally, ability to foster harmonious relationship with not just the industry peers, but with every stakeholders and in particular the society. Let me stop here.
Wow, really words of wisdom here. I've got a leadership crash course here in just 5 minutes. So that's wonderful. So now, as you know, that the Great Journeys series addresses leadership and ethical issues. And as a leader, how have your values and personal ethics influenced you? And 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 how do you believe they influenced Infosys?
Kaushal, you know very well that our actions are what values we believe in. Our personality is described by our actions. We are a manifestation of the cultures that our parents brought us up to be and what our teachers exhorted us to be. Every action of ours is predicated on where we stand on fairness, transparency, honesty, accountability, courtesy, and decency in deciding issues. I believe that the best way to inculcate values in your juniors is if you lead by example, walk the talk, and practice the precept. Now, for example, I would reach the office at 6:20 in the morning. I did not have to tell my younger colleagues to be in the office on time. They observed me and they followed my example. I stayed in inexpensive hotels with my younger colleagues to demonstrate to them that I believed in austerity and I valued the hard-earned money of the company. I traveled by economy even on international flights till we reached a revenue of $2 billion. We gave employee stock option plan to everybody in the company, from janitors to non-founder senior officers, because we believed in fairness. We distributed as much as 20% of the market capitalization, 20% of the company's outstanding equity. And today it is somewhere around $16 billion. We had an open evaluation of an employee by his or her boss because of our belief in fairness and transparency. We let go of a full-time director in 48 hours when he did not do what was required, what was acceptable to us. When there was a need for austerity, we proposed a declining cut in salary from the top to the bottom because of our belief in fairness. We just did not pay any bribe. I believe that these actions brought confidence to our employees, that the leaders of Infosys lead by example, and as you people say, that these people eat their own dog's food.
Wow. So, did your personal ethics ever become an obstacle for growth at Infosys? And if so, could you please share an example where you faced a dilemma of having to make a tough decision of foregoing revenues in order to protect your core values, and also what lessons were learned by your team?
I am amongst youngsters who are going to shape the US and the world. These are all bright people. They're full of energy, full of enthusiasm. I want them to understand one thing, and that is what is value system? Value system is the willingness to pay a certain cost for your beliefs. If you are not ready to pay that cost, then you are not sticking to your value system. This cost could be loss of revenue, loss of profit, delays in approval from the government or from the customer, and loss of legitimate benefits that are due to you from the government. Yes, there have been several incidents when bribes were demanded by some rare customers and some low-level government employees. But on each of these occasions, we stood firm and accepted the loss of business, delays in approval, and the loss of benefits from the government. Kaushal, the moment you accept such costs for the first time, the respect for you from the party making such demand increases. They stop harassing you since there is no return on investment for their time in your case. So my advice to these extraordinary youngsters in the cloud is to stand firm a couple of times, and you will become the role model for those government officers in developing countries, and they will not trouble you again.
So I believe you also let go a Fortune 10 client once as well, right? That was a tough decision.
No, that was more a disagreement in the pricing. There was nothing unethical about it. They were very kind people, extremely good people, but they were quite used to demanding the best. Unfortunately, we made our analysis and we found that we would shortchange them if we accepted their demand. Therefore, we respectfully declined to continue with them, and we remain very good friends. We have tremendous respect for them.
Okay, great. So that leads to the next question, that you have been a proponent of bottom line and high margins. And not too long ago, the Business Roundtable released a statement signed by over 181 CEOs redefining the purpose of corporation, and that is to work for the benefit of all stakeholders rather than simply maximizing shareholder value. So, could you please share your current thinking on the purpose of corporations?
Sure, sure. Kaushal, as early as 1976, when I founded my first company that failed, I had defined what good corporate governance meant to me. Good corporate governance is maximizing shareholder value on a sustainable basis, legally and ethically, while ensuring fairness, transparency, and accountability to every stakeholder. Who are the stakeholders? The stakeholders of a corporation are customers, employees, investors, vendor partners, competitors, and the society. Of these Society is the most important stakeholder since society contributes customers, employees, investors, vendor partners, competitors, bureaucrats, and politicians. My belief is that we arrive at the best decision if we ask before taking any decision whether such a decision would bring respect for the corporation from its stakeholders. That is why our vision statement has been to become the most respected corporation in the world. To do it, we have to ensure that our customers looks good in front of his or her customers by our timely delivery of best products and services to the customer. We have to protect the respect and dignity of our employees by following the adage, in God we trust, everybody else brings data to the table, and by ensuring fairness and transparency in every decision. We demonstrate our commitment to our investors by following the adages, under promise and over deliver, and when in doubt, disclose. Now, as I said before, we seek respect from society in every one of our decisions. We do not create externalities. We compete fairly with our competitors. None of these precepts, Kaushal, will reduce the revenue and profits of a corporation. I believe that only those corporations that strive for good behavior on a long and sustained basis will show progress on a sustainable basis. Now, I want to say something now that's very important. I would like every one of you to please buy a book called Winners Never Cheat by John Huntsman. John was the chairman of Wharton when I was a member of the board of overseers at Wharton. This is an extraordinary book. This is a very small book. And if you keep it as your Bible, and when you are in a difficult situation, read the relevant chapter, and I believe you will all become wonderful leaders that will make your corporation progress very well. Let me stop here.
Golden words indeed. So from your past experience, could you please share some common ethical dilemmas faced by multinational corporations such as Infosys when they operate across borders?
Let me give you just one example. The biggest challenge for Indian companies in a developed country is to create jobs for local people and recruit local talent. Being a foreign company from a developing countries that competes on better value for money or lower prices, many times we are not in a position to compete with some extraordinary companies that operate in your country. Therefore, despite our best effort, we are not in a position to attract large number of top quality talent. It's not just the problem of a foreign company like Infosys. I have found it the problem of so many companies in your country because there's so much competition. There are so many smart companies. So much of innovation is happening. So I would say that this is a very important dilemma for us because our first objective is to create as many jobs for the local talent as possible in the marketplace. Let me stop here.
So are you satisfied by the way things are happening right now in terms of local job creation, or you think more needs to be done?
Well, we have accelerated our job creation in the US. We have had a step function increase. There are a lot more people that we are recruiting from colleges and from the open field. But Kaushal, you know that we can always do a lot better. That's what I would say.
So the another topic of current relevance here in the US as well as abroad relates to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And from your own perspective, can you speak on the business impact of diversity, equity, and inclusion? And what do you think we need to do to bridge where we are now to where we want to be in the future?
I believe that diversity is important in the contemporary world. For example, 38% of our incoming batch of software engineers are women. I find that diversity is even more important in a country like India, where there is an added factor of caste. Due to a certain history, a large part of India has been denied opportunities of good education and jobs by the so-called upper caste. So our challenge is even bigger than that of the companies in the US. I also believe that the best ideas come from a team with diversity. That's what I've experienced. Equity is very important if we want to be considered a fair and a civilized set of people. The instrument to improve equity is inclusion. So I am a believer in diversity, equity, and inclusion, but I may have different views on how to implement DEI in a country like India. Let me stop here.
Okay. So today's program is the Great Journey series, and each of us has faced folks in the road
Yeah,
leading to inflection points in our own journeys.
yeah.
And personally and professionally, what were some of your key folks that you faced? And do you have any regrets about the choices you did not make?
Well, there have been many folks, Kaushal, that my life has taken. I believe that God wills the best for every one of us. So I have no such regrets. Let me talk about an important folk that I took in my own life. This event occurred when I was a graduate student in control theory at IIT Kanpur in India. This was the year 1967-68. I was reasonably good in mathematics. And therefore, as you know very well, control theory and mathematics, control theory is basically mathematics. At breakfast on a bright Sunday morning in 1968, I had a chance encounter with a very famous computer science professor on sabbatical from a well-known Ivy League US university. He discussed with us exciting new developments in the field of computer science. He was a visionary. In 1968, he spoke about how computers would change our life. He was articulate, he was passionate, and quite convincing. I was hooked. I went straight from breakfast to the central library, read 4 or 5 papers he had suggested, and left the library determined to study computer science. Folks, when I look back today at that pivotal meeting, I marvel at how one role model can alter for the better the future of a young student. This experience taught me that valuable advice can sometimes come from an unexpected source, and chance events or forks, as you call, can sometimes transform your life by opening new doors. Let me stop here.
That actually IIT Kanpur was known as ground zero, is known as ground zero for computer science education in India.
Yeah.
So we have some
Well,
entrepreneurs.
you were a top ranking student there, so
I don't
I
know
can.
about that, but
No,
had
no.
so we have some entrepreneurs and potential entrepreneurs in the audience here today. Could you please share some lessons for success in entrepreneurship?
Well, amongst the wonderful youngsters gathered in the cloud today, some will become entrepreneurs. They will transform the world in ways that I cannot imagine. All that I can say is my best wishes to you. As you are running this marathon, we will be on the sidelines, we'll be cheering you, we will give you a bottle of water as you are running. To me, entrepreneurship is using the power of an idea into creating jobs and wealth. To succeed as an entrepreneur, you need to do the following stuff. One, not succeed, I would say to enhance the probability of success as an entrepreneur, you need to do the following. First, have an idea which has not occurred to anybody else in the world. Such ideas create discontinuity in the marketplace. Facebook, Google, Microsoft, Uber, Amazon, and Airbnb are good examples of such ideas. Second, most ideas improve upon existing ideas. It doesn't matter. If your idea is one such, make sure that your idea outperforms all existing ideas in at least one attribute like cost, productivity, comfort, cycle time, etc., etc. There are many other attributes. Third, please remember that you must express the power of your idea in a simple sentence and not a complex sentence or a compound sentence. No ifs and buts in your articulation, because simple ideas are easy to explain, easy to understand, easy to attract customers and key employees and investors, and easy to execute. Finally, conduct an inexpensive, quick, and simple test marketing exercise to assess whether your idea will fly in the marketplace. Please don't go into the marketplace without this simple test marketing exercise, because I failed in my first attempt because since I did not do the test marketing exercise. Let me stop here.
Great. So finally, this is my last question before we open up to audience questions. So how would you like to be remembered by the present and future generations?
Kushal, I believe that fairness is the most important attribute of a human being. Fairness is following the golden rule. Do unto others what you want them to do unto you. Fairness teaches you to put yourself in the other person's shoes in deciding an issue. Fairness forces you to use data and facts in deciding a transaction. Fairness teaches you to be objective in each transaction and to overcome one's personal biases. Fairness raises the confidence about the correctness of a transaction, even in the mind of a person who loses that transaction. The recipient of your decision is likely to say that he or she did not have the right data and therefore he or she lost the transaction. It gives him or her the confidence to obtain better data to win the next transaction. So I would say, Kaushal, that I want my epitaph to say, here lies a person who strove hard to be fair in every transaction.
Thank you, Mr. Murthy, for really sharing some great insights into your thinking about various issues important to all of us. So now I will ask Professor Marcus to moderate any audience questions he may have.
Sure. Sure.
So over to you, Dick.
I'm so happy to have the opportunity to talk with you this morning. We have a mission statement in the Lubar School that we stimulate innovative and analytical thinking to produce impactful research and teaching. So I want to talk about the question about innovation. What are the ingredients that help to make a company innovative?
I think, Professor Marcus, this is a very important question. I will tell you a short story. In 1993, we conducted a workshop to explain innovation to every employee in the company. We were probably about 200, 250 employees, a small company. We did it in English and we did it in Kannada, our local language, all of them. Next day, the janitor who cleans my office, he came to me. He said, "Sir, I did not fully understand what was spoken. Can you explain what innovation is?" I said, "Friend, sit down, I'll explain to you." I said, "Gentlemen, you are in charge of cleaning 8 offices and conference rooms every day. Now, there are 3 things you have to do every day or every week. First is measure how much time you take to clean each conference room. And tomorrow, see if you can reduce that time by 5%, but keep on doing it continuously." For example, he would use one hand and a cleaning cloth on the table. I said, "Now try and do if you can use both hands with 2 pieces of cloth, which will reduce the time." Second, I told him, so therefore I said, you have improved your productivity. Second thing I said, you use a certain cleaning liquid. Please go to the market and find out if there's a new cleaning liquid which is as good as what you're using, but which is cheaper. I said, by doing that, you have reduced the cost of your job, cost of using the cleaning liquid. And the third thing I said, look, today you clean this table. Look at the table carefully. There may be 2 or 3 specks of dust. Tomorrow, you take care and say, I will ensure that there is 1 speck less of dust than today. So therefore, I said, innovation is all about improving productivity, reducing cost, and improving quality. And I said, innovation has to be organic in a company. It is not the prerogative of only a few chosen people. Everybody has to say, how can I reduce the cost of what I'm doing? How can I improve the quality of what I'm doing? And how can I do whatever I am doing in less time tomorrow than today? Sorry, I took a little bit of time.
No, it was very insightful. Thank you. Deepak asks, if you were to start a new tech company today, what would be your focus area? Maybe they're trying to pick your mind.
Well, I think, that's a very tough question. I don't have a crystal ball. I am not as smart. I am 75 years now. I am not as smart as the youngsters in the cloud. So I don't want to make a fool of myself. However, having said that, sitting where I sit, looking at what I look at, let me say this, that I personally believe that Internet of Things is what is going to provide a lot of opportunities, because in Internet of Things, we are combining both the computing power and the communications power to bring productivity improvement to a lot of systems. That could be surgery, that could be an automatic car, that could be, a better control of a furnace, that could be better teaching. There are a lot of areas where Internet of Things will make a difference as we move forward. However, I have one small advice for them. While it is true that such innovations are very useful, the society may not take good to ideas that will result in major jobs of losses. So therefore, I would request the youngsters to focus on what I would call assistive technologies. That is, those technologies in the IoT area which will bring added productivity, which will bring reduced cost and improved quality, improved response time, etc., to the society. Then you will not have to fight the society throughout the world. In some countries, it may be easily acceptable. In countries like yours, definitely it will be more easily acceptable. But in poorer countries like India, where there is already a lot of job losses, a lot of people don't have job, there will be a lot of opposition. So I would say that if you want your idea to be globally valuable, make them assistive technologies.
Mhm. Thank you. Their anonymous question came about why popular leaders are not doing so well or failing during natural calamities, and COVID is given as an example. What advice would you give to leaders, maybe government leaders, maybe corporate leaders?
You know, when Kaushal asked me the questions of what are the things that I have learned from successful leaders in the world, one of the things that I said is the ability to use formal methods and mathematics, collect data, do simulation, do what if analysis, do scenario analysis, etc., and leave this task to experts. I think if a society involves experts, and if those experts were to do what if analysis, modeling, scenario analysis, use mathematics, use formal methods, simulation, feedback controls, etc., then they would be in a better position to predict. They would have been in a better position to predict. Unfortunately, whether it was your country or even in my country, somehow that didn't happen. For whatever reason, I don't want to get into that, but it didn't happen. Experts were not encouraged, modeling was not done, scenario analysis was not done, people were not prepared for the worst case. That's why I always, even today, I have Mathematica on my laptop, even though I don't work today. I have been having Mathematica for so many years now. because I believe in modeling. I believe in using mathematics. I believe in, I'm an electrical engineer. As I pointed out, I was studying control theory, then I shifted to computer science. So if only societies were to invite experts and give them opportunity to come out with predictions that may be unpalatable. And if we give them freedom to say what they want without shutting them down, I personally feel that such a society is likely to handle these things better. That's my view.
Thank you. I guess this will be the last question. Natalie asked us, since we're have analytics as one of our key missions, how do we remove our biases from data analysis? How do we do that when we have a tendency to put a story into analysis?
No, I think that is where the committees that decide what data goes in and what data does not go into the database has to bring in pluralism, diversity, contrarian views, agreeing, disagreeing without being disagreeable. I think if we create such a team that decides what data goes into the database and what data does not go in, I personally believe that we will be enhancing the probability of doing the right. Everything, one thing I've learned in life, I can only say anything with a certain confidence level, with a certain probability. Beyond that, I can't say anything.
You have certainly been an inspiration in this great journeys talk. We thank you very much.
Thank you, Dick. Thank you, Mr. Murthy, for sharing some great lessons in leaderships, ethics, and entrepreneurship. And these lessons will surely help us recalibrate our inner compasses to guide our journeys moving forward. So thank you so much. Thank you also to Dennis Kester and the M&I Bank for making these events possible. And thanks to the audience for attending this event. Last but not the least, I want to thank Chris Pivek and Debbie Roy for providing logistic support. And thank you all again. And this event concludes now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I am very grateful to you people for this kindness in inviting me. Take care.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
I will close now.